Hey there, Ebby here. Welcome back to the channel. This right here is the Canon Ae-1. You see, if you were to ask 10 film photographers what they think the best beginner film camera is, a lot of people would suggest this Canon Ae-1. But you see, I've never actually taken the time to shoot with one. My first film camera was the Pentax K1000 and I absolutely love that camera. In fact, I even made a video about it that I'm going to link up here and also in the description down below if you wanted to check it out. But the Canon Ae-1 was a very close second when I wanted to get started with film photography. So I recently picked up this one for 60 bucks on Facebook Marketplace and I put a couple of rolls through it. Now, usually on this channel, when I make my reviews, I like to do a history. I like to talk about the parts on this camera, but that's already been done a number of different times. If you want to know what the buttons do and everything about this camera, I'm going to put a link in the description again for a couple of videos that I would recommend that you watch if you want to learn about the buttons on this camera. What I really wanted to do was see if this camera is worth it. Is it actually the best beginner film camera for anyone getting started with film photography? Or is that all crap? I've had this camera for about 2 weeks now, and this past week I took 2 rolls with me, one color, one black and white, as I was going on a trip to Kitchener, Ontario. I wanted to actually use this camera as my day-to-day camera. I actually put my Leica camera down, and this was the only 35mm camera that I had with me. I'm going to be showing you some clips as well as some images of what I was able to get shooting with this camera, and I'm going to chat to you on the other side about my thoughts on this Canon Ae-1. It's not that expensive actually. I buy it from Downtown Camera and they bulk load it, so it comes up to like $12 a roll. After loading up the camera and taking some initial shots, it was an hour drive to get to Kitchener. I was actually going to pick up some cameras I had found on Facebook Marketplace.
Automatic cameras that came out for film. That thing takes the most beautiful pictures.
Picked them up, tested them out. I'll be making some more content on this channel, so make sure you get subscribed. So I just arrived at Victoria Park. It looks really promising. So I'm going to get all my cameras in my bag, get all set up, get my film, and just hit the walkway and see what I can get. I developed and scanned these rolls myself using my Flick Film C41 chemistry as well as my Epson V600 scanner. A couple of things I like about this camera is that it has a built-in light meter. Now, in some of the lenses for this Canon Ae-1 that you can get, you can also put it in aperture priority mode. So what that does is that the camera sets the aperture for you. All you have to do is set the ISO and set the shutter speed. Now, for anyone getting started with film photography, that is beautiful. So all you have to do is just set your shutter speed and shoot with the camera does the rest for you. The next thing I really like about this camera is the shutter sound. The shutter sound is actually quite nice. Well, listen to this. Let me show you what this sounds like. It's actually pretty beautiful. It sort of reminds me of the Pentax 6x7. If you shoot medium format, you know what I'm talking about. But the Pentax 6x7 has a beautiful shutter slap that a lot of people really like, and I really like the shutter sound of this camera. It sort of gives it an extra oomph that makes me really like the way it moves. When it comes to shooting film, the number one thing you want to be able to do is save money. On Facebook Marketplace, on eBay, you can find a number of different lens options and accessory options for this camera that would take you a long way if you really want to get invested in that ecosystem. And that's something I really like about this. When you're getting started with film photography in general, you don't know if you're just gonna like a certain focal length. You don't know if there's going to be an accessory that's going to help you like the camera better. And the fact that those things are cheap when it comes to that Canon Ae-1 is really, really nice. Another thing I really like about this camera is the ease of use. Loading the camera is very, very easy. All you have to do is open up the back, put your film in, load it up, and wind it forward. It's really, really easy to do. It's really not that complicated. Using the camera, all you have to do is just set your ISO, set your shutter speed, and the camera does the rest. It's really easy to use for anyone getting started with film photography. Once you got in the hang of it, it becomes second nature. When it comes to this camera, it's not all rainbows and sunshines. There are a couple of things that I don't really like when it comes to this camera. And the first thing is the grip. Now, I don't know if you can see this, but I do have really long hands, long fingers. Now, for long fingers, you do need some sort of grip on the camera, but see this. This camera doesn't sit in my hand. If I was using my Leica, which I have here, this camera sits in my hand pretty nicely and it allows me to have the camera just be here and take a photo. But with this Canon Ae-1, there's not much real estate on this side where it kind of just doesn't sit in my hand properly. And for me to be able to have this camera and use it as a day-to-day camera, it needs to have a better grip. I need to get an accessory for it. I don't like the way it feels in my hand. Which leads me to the second thing, is that this camera is a little bit heavy. Now, it does have a vintage vibe, and with that vintage vibe comes the metal. Now, this camera is made of what seems like proper metal. It's not cheap metal, it's not cheap plastic. This camera is a little on the heavy side. Now, if you're someone who doesn't like things being heavy, weighing them down on your neck or on your wrist, this is something that is going to be a turn off for you, because this camera is chunky. It weighs a little bit more than my Leica M2 and definitely weighs a lot more than a regular point and shoot camera. When it comes to what I actually think about this camera is actually a beautiful camera. It's easy to use, easy to load. It's gonna give you proper sharp images. There's a lot of accessories and a lot of options available for this camera. Is it the best beginner camera out there? I would say it's a close yes between this and a bunch of other cameras. But because this camera is easily available, you can usually find it for a good price and in good condition. Yes, this camera is probably right up there with being one of the best beginner film cameras. When it comes to who this camera is actually for, this camera is actually for people who shot film before and who are looking to take the next step up to shooting a more manual film camera. If you've never shot film before, if you have no idea what photography is, I would suggest getting a point and shoot camera first. If you're a photographer who's only shot digital before and you're looking to get something that's more filmy and you're looking to get a film camera, definitely this camera is right for you. Pick up this Canon Ae-1, you won't regret it. Those are all the thoughts I have about this camera. If you like this type of video, please make sure you do the things, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, as this goes a long way to making sure I produce more content like this. Until next time, make sure you stay safe, make sure you shoot film, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.